On today's Locked On Jayhawks, we preview Kansas UNLV. Can the Jayhawks bounce back in a bowl game rematch?
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can find me on Twitter at DJohnsonRadio, and you can find the show. It's called Locked On Jayhawks anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. Thank you to the everydayers tuning in to each and every episode. Thank you for making LOJ your first listen every day. We're going to be talking KU UNLV today, top storylines, UNLV scouting report, matchups of the game, players to watch, Hawks to soar, all that sort of stuff, pick a prop, and more on today's episode of the show, which is brought to you by Game Time. Maybe you're looking to get some tickets last minute to the game and you don't have tickets to the game currently. Well, go no further than Game Time, where you can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. All right, so we're going to start with our storylines of the game, our UNLV scouting report, and then we're going to move on to the matchups of the game and the rest of the fun stuff here. All of it's fun, hopefully, here with Locked On Jayhawks. So this is a rematch of the bowl game, the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, in which Kansas came out on top 49-36. It was a super high-scoring game. It was KU's first bowl win in almost 15 years. It was a game that had a ton of penalties. I mean, both teams were called for a bunch, but especially Kansas. Over 200 penalty yards for KU. They out-yarded them by basically 200 yards, but the penalty yards kind of made up for that. KU also had 3 interceptions, but guess what? Jason Bean still threw for 450, 6 tugs, and KU was able to throw it all over the field. UNLV's offense took a hit by losing their quarterback, though they do have a good transfer-in quarterback who's a better runner than the previous guy, but the defense has been much better than that bowl game, but still some things the same, some things different between this matchup to where you were last year. You know, you could say, well, KU has Bryce Foster and Logan Brown and Jalen Daniels and some of this stuff, though the way Jason Bean played in the bowl game compared to what we just saw from Jalen last week, you know, that would be actually a downgrade. But if we get Jalen Daniels from what we've seen over the big picture, from what Jalen Daniels we saw in 2022 and 2023, I still think that would be an upgrade. But the question is, you know, and that's kind of the other big storyline here, Jeff Grimes and Jalen Daniels trying to bounce back. What is Jeff Grimes going to look like as an offense coordinator this go around? How is it going to look in terms of running the football? And I don't even know necessarily, like, all the people who are shouting, including myself, like, run the ball. It was specific to that game. KU was averaging 4.4 yards, at least for me. I mean, in general, do run the football because you have Devin Neal and Daniel Highshaw, but it was even more echoed, like, by that game, right? I'm not saying run the ball all the time, no matter what. But in that game, you were averaging more yards per run than you were per pass, and you were struggling throwing the football. If in this game, you're only averaging 3 yards per carry, 3.6, which is what you averaged last time you played them in the bowl, and you are throwing for 400 yards, pass the football like you did in the bowl game. And that's what you need to do, is go with the flow, basically. And you just hope Jalen Daniels looks more like the guy that we've been accustomed to, and that last game was just kind of a blip on the radar. That is entirely possible that ends up happening. You know, for UNLV's perspective, not just trying to get revenge on that and trying to stay undefeated, but they are a group of 5 college football playoff contender. You look at Boise State, you look at Texas State, some of these schools that are going to have a chance to earn that Nomer. UNLV wins this game and they have a win over Houston and Kansas at that point. All of a sudden, they jump toward the top of that list. And then on top of it, interesting uniform battle. KU is actually giving away shirts to the first, I think it's 5,000 fans who come in, black KU t-shirts. They're pretty cool looking. KU is going to be doing the blackout, wearing all the black uniforms. UNLV is wearing grays. Gray on black is certainly a weird matchup for uniforms in this matchup. Now, as far as what UNLV brings to the table, they come in at 2-0 on the season. They had a 27-7 victory over Houston, which at the time was, okay, that's impressive. Maybe Houston's just really bad? Question mark. UNLV followed it up with a 70 burger on Utah Tech. Now, Utah Tech, not great, but, you know, still putting up 70 on anybody. And then on top of that, you see what Houston did against Oklahoma, where they only lost by, 4 points? And now it starts to raise the alarm bells a little bit more about what this team could be. I mean, this is after they won 9 games a season ago. They played for a bowl game. They played in the Mountain West title game against Boise State, and seems like they're a better team. than they were a season ago. Now, on paper, the idea was that Kansas was going to be a better team than they were a season ago. And you get this one at home as opposed to playing on a bowl game, albeit a different home field and everything, but still. But what we saw against Illinois was not a better team than the one that finished last season. Again, though, if that was just a blip on the radar, bad game where weird stuff happened, then you should be fine. But if that's who you truly were, then things probably aren't going to look great. It is interesting. You look at the line. I think it opened around 7.5. I think at one point it moved to 6.5. Now it's up to like 8.5 for KU UNLV. So late money coming in on Kansas, which I guess would be a good thing from the Sharps. By Pro Football Focus grade, you look at what UNLV does. They are 64th in passing grade. It's about average there. 12th in pass blocking grade. 29th in receiving grade. 24th in run blocking grade. They're just 113th in tackling grade, though, 107th in pass rush grade, but they're 22nd in coverage grade. Now, take those with a grain of salt, just in general, but also you've played one game against an FCS opponent who you overmatched, and you could say the same about some of KU's grades, that's for sure. But so far, UNLV is 19th in the country in EPA per rush. They're 40th in EPA per dropback, so they've been balanced there. They're also 20th in ECHL rate. That basically means a large percentage. An ECHL is basically a long touchdown without getting too much in the weeds there. So they're hitting explosive touchdowns outside the red zone on big plays. You're going to have to shut down those big plays. And I think for the most part, KU did a good job of avoiding big plays against Illinois. Obviously, you think about two of the biggest pass plays that Illinois had that helped them win the game, but I don't know, one was still like a 15-yard gain. It was really just that one deep ball catch, which was just an incredible one-handed catch where McGee had pretty good coverage and he's being kind of held off with an arm. This is a different animal, though, because this team is more explosive than the first two teams that you've played. Dual threat QB, ton of skill weapons, ton of speed, ton of agility on the outside, good blocking so far. They've got that unique defense. It's versatile. It tries to confuse you that honestly, you struggled running the football against last year, but did a good job passing the ball. But they've been a better defense this year than they were last season, again, through 2 games, but still it's been kind of night and day. What's interesting about this game is in the same way that you could say about the Illinois game, this isn't as important. If you're stacking up this game to we just talk about the very next week with the West Virginia game, of course, the West Virginia game is more important. That's the one that counts to the league table. The Houston game, Houston lost by 20 to UNLV, and even then the Houston game is technically more important because it's a Big 12 game. The reason why this one might jump up in terms of importance, unlike the Illinois one, though, is that you are trying to shake off last week. You are trying to prove that what you saw last week is not the real Kansas. Because if last week is the real Kansas, the goals are no longer win the Big 12, have a 10-win season, finish ranked. The goals are just make it back to a bowl game. If last week was what the real Kansas is. It's possible, though. Last week was just a good Illinois defensive effort combined with a bad Kansas game and a perfect confluence of an early season loss. And teams suffer early season losses. Teams suffer road losses, especially to power opponents, all the time. They get upset all the time, right? Unless you're really in that top 10, and even then it happens, right? So that's why this one gains in importance. It's less about this going into your goal of winning the Big 12 because it can't affect that, but it's more to the idea of if you lose this game, now you've lost back-to-back games. Now you're kind of proving that you're not that type of team that can win all those games in the Big 12 versus if you win this one, especially if you do it convincingly, if you win by 10, 14, 21 points against a good UNLV team, we're going to come out of it saying, okay, feels like Kansas is back. Now you get to reset the record basically in conference play and go prove what you can do on the road against West Virginia. And if you win that one, now it's going to feel like you have your momentum back, but it all starts with winning tonight against UNLV. We're going to continue on our matchups of the game, player matchup to watch, Hawks to soar, pick a prop, all that and more. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Our episode today is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Our episode today is also brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. They're not just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you're kind of missing out. You're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And I certainly have LinkedIn. I know that it's easier to apply for jobs on LinkedIn because I already have like my resume uploaded on LinkedIn. So if it's easier for people to apply, you're probably going to get more applicants. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post a job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you to the Everydayers tuning in to each and every show. Don't forget to make Locked On College Football your second listen. You can check out our Big 12 Roundtable. We had that posted here through Locked On Jayhawks as well from just yesterday. All right, our matchups of the game for KU and UNLV. First down, will the real Jalon Daniels please stand up? And honestly, I kind of want to and could include Jeff Grimes into this. Like, will the real Jeff Grimes please stand up? Because what's weird is, and we went over some of these numbers in the offseason. Like, you look back to Jeff Grimes at Baylor, at BYU, he loved running the football. Loved pounding the rock with a good running back. So I don't know what happened in that Illinois game. Maybe that gives you confidence that that will be kind of a kind of misnomer that KU moves on from. But will the real Jalon Daniels please stand up? And I think the real Jalon Daniels is still an excellent quarterback. I still believe that the real Jalon Daniels is in there. I still believe that the 2022, the 2023 guy is still in there. I am not selling my Jalon Daniels stock. It was a bad game against Illinois. It is okay to say that and still believe in Jalon Daniels and what he is going to do. And what do good players do after they have a bad game? They respond. They answer the bell. They move on from it and they get better from it and they move on. So if you believe in that, like I do, then I think Jalon Daniels is going to have a bounce back game in this performance. And I think it's especially pertinent because, I mean, A, the quarterback is always going to be important, but what if you can't run the football against UNLV? Right? I mean, we spent all week talking about run the ball against Illinois. Why didn't they run the football more? Well, what happens if you get into this matchup? Because last matchup, you could run the ball. But what happens if you get into this matchup and you can't? The Running Rebels are second in the country in EPA per rush defensively. So it's not crazy to think about. They held you and Devin Neal to 3.6 yards per carry, both as a team and Devin Neal a season ago in the bowl game. So it's not crazy. And, you know, either way, whether it is more limited and there is less passes, or if they are able to stop the run and you do have to rely on the passing game, you look at the bowl game, KU was able to throw the football around. And I think if Jalon is a carbon copy of the performance he was against Illinois, I don't think it matters. You're going to lose this game to UNLV. But if Jalon looks like the guy that we've seen in the bigger sample size in his 3 games in 2023, in his, whatever it was, I don't know, 7.5 games in 2022, then I think KU is going to win this football game. As far as how doable it is, the bad news is UNLV is a complex defense, and they've played well this year. And you look at the comments from Jeff Grimes that Illinois was, you know, really good at disguising stuff. And that was like one of the most complex, I don't know, defenses or whatever they were doing. Coverage is that, I forget the exact quote, that they were playing against. Well, UNLV is a complex defense too, and they disguise things. So that's not great. Good news, though, is UNLV's corner depth isn't great. They do have one stud corner, but I don't know that I trust the rest of them. So I think KU, because they have that depth of good receivers, should be able to take advantage of it. Now, it seems like there's been a honing in on Luke Grimm. I think this is a game that would behoove you to really, you know, divvy the ball around. And if Kansas can do that and Jalon Daniels has a good game, I think you're going to like the result. Second down, KU interior pass rush. I've enjoyed watching the KU defensive line and the interior so far this season. I think it's been a nice, pleasant surprise. I think we were in on the D-line or the interior of the D-line coming into the year. We had bigger questions about the edge, but they need to step up this week, and not just against the run, but some pass rush. UNLV has a good left and right tackle. That's going to make it harder for the edge pressure to get there for KU, which means you need more from the interior, where UNLV does have a good right guard, but they're not as strong at left guard and center. I think there's some opportunities there. UNLV still is 12th overall in pass blocking grade through the first weeks of college football, again, playing Utah Tech, though part of that. But so far through 2 games, KU has 29 pressures, 17 of those are from edge players: Dean Miller, Jeremy Robinson, DJ Warner, Ron McGee, and Dylan Woodkey. 5 are from linebackers: J.B. Brown, Jason Gilliam, and Taiwan Berryhill. 2 are from defensive backs on blitzes: Mello Dotson, Marvin Grant. The other 5 pressures are from interior linemen, and it's just from 2 interior linemen who have eaten up all of those: Tommy Dunn, who's had an awesome start to the year, and DJ Withers, who I thought has had some good flash plays, but you look at PFF grade, he has not stood out so far, but I still think that is coming for Withers. Can Caleb Taylor get one this week? Can Tommy Dunn continue his good play and get 1 or 2? Can DJ Withers flash some more? Can you get a guy like, I don't know, Keenan Caldwell or Blake Harrell to come in there and maybe get you 1? If you're averaging 2.5 interior pressures per game, which they are coming into this one, I think that number needs to get to like at least 3, but probably 4. Maybe if you can even get to 5 tonight. Maybe that number goes down because UNLV doesn't pass it as much because their quarterback runs a lot. So maybe it's more of a, 2 interior pressures, but on a lower volume of passes that works. I don't know, but I think you need to get a little bit of push there from the interior, because maybe a little tougher tonight for those edges to get there as well as they have in the first couple games. Third down is third downs. Opponents have faced 28 third downs against the UNLV defense so far this year. Would you like to guess how many of them have been converted? It's not many. Only 3 have been converted against the UNLV defense in 28 attempts. If you're looking to add up, pull out the calculator, that's about 11% conversion rate. Doesn't take a mathematician to know that is not good for opposing offenses. I will say, for all the passing game's faults for KU last week against Illinois, they're still converting over 50% of their third downs, which feels certainly weird to me. But then you start thinking about it and you're like, oh, you were just turning the ball over. It wasn't that you were like having a bunch of third down issues. And so if KU can convert like that against UNLV defense, which has gotten off the field really well. I mean, even against Illinois, they were 6 of 13 on third down. And maybe you make another 1 or 2 of those if you just run the ball on third down. Maybe you're 7 of 13 or 8 of 13, right? But UNLV's defense is already confusing. You get into third down situations, they run that kind of like, it's almost like a 2-4-5, 4-2-5 type of hybrid. You get into third downs, you get into third down in passing situations, they're bringing weird blitzes. They're having certain guys standing. They have certain guys with their hands in the dirt. Some guys are coming back. Like, it becomes a little bit difficult to figure out who is blitzing, and that makes it challenging for the line. It makes it challenging for Jalen Daniels. Just stay out of those situations. So maybe the best way is to just avoid them altogether. But yeah, if KU can convert on those third downs, that would be huge, because that's been a strength for UNLV this season. Real quick on the other end, UNLV ranks 110th in early downs EPA, so they've not been that great on first and second down, but they're 39th in the country on third and fourth down success rate. So they've given team chances to give them off the field, but teams haven't been able to do so, meaning KU's defense plays well on third downs and UNLV keeps struggling on early downs. That's a great combo for the Jayhawk defense. But what's funny is the KU defense has played exactly into UNLV. Like, UNLV has struggled on early downs, been good on those third and fourth downs. Well, guess what? KU is third in the country right now in early downs EPA on defense. So while UNLV has been bad on first and second down, KU has been really good on first and second down. But then KU is 100th on third and fourth down success rate defensively. So do you look at that and say, well, that's just a small sample. Luke Altmaier had a couple of great catches by like Zachary Franklin and company on third and longs. That leads to that number. Do you look at it and say, okay, well, if they're bad on first and second down and KU is good at it, then they're going to be in a lot of third and really toughs that it'll make it way harder to convert those third downs? Or do you look at it as it'll just be exactly what this story tells us? They'll struggle on first and second down, but then they're going to convert a lot of these third downs. That'll certainly be interesting in this one. Fourth down, special teams. I still don't totally know that KU has the kicker situation, like, that you feel comfortable, I guess would be the way to put it. Like, I'm trying to think out of it. Like, Tabor Allen made his first field goal. Great. He's done well in the PATs besides the one miss, but we haven't seen a lot. And so I guess the best way I'm trying to put this is it's an unknown. We don't know, like, what is the range of Tabor Allen? Can he hit from 50? Can he hit from 40? How confident are you that he can hit accurately from 40 beyond just the distance? So you don't really know that. I was impressed with Damon Greaves in a limited sample of 2 punts last week. Through 2 games, UNLV ranks 133rd of 134 teams, though, in special teams grade on Pro Football Focus. Not very good. They do rank 26th on ESPN SP+, though, so very different grades in how those are going about. They did lose their stud kicker, who was like an All-American last year. They're getting just 8 yards per kick return, so you can see why that would be the case. KU, though, ranks 15th on ESPN SP+ in special teams through the first 2 weeks. Now, we've been here before where KU's rated well through the first, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, and then they tail off, but this is still in the first part of the season, so I guess that's good. maybe this could be a game in front of a home crowd that Trevor Wilson or Savion Morrison pops a kickoff for a score. With this being a close game, what if it does come down to the place kickers, right? I mean, what if it does come down to that? So I think special teams is going to be very important in this game for really both teams. Our player matchup, I normally go player on player. I'm not doing it this time. I'm going Jalen Daniels versus Mike Scherer, who's the defensive coordinator for UNLV. If you want to include Barry Odom into that, who's the head coach, but was a defensive guy, so I'd imagine has his fingerprints all over it. That's fine. It's player versus coach. Because I think, A, after last week, Jalen's performance, B, I think KU needs Jalen to at least play. I don't know that Jalen has to play an A game for them to win this, but it certainly can't be. If last week was, I don't know, maybe the worst game we've seen him play since true freshman. So if that was a D game, an F game or whatever, it at least has to be like a B- game, I think, for him to win this. And maybe you do need an A game because UNLV is a good team. But beyond that, beyond the fact that you're looking for him to bounce back, and again, to make it clear, I think he will bounce back. He, so far this season, 39 passer rating when under pressure. UNLV will come after you. They have 7 sacks this year, and they'll come with different blitzes. And you look at the past 2 seasons, KU's quarterbacks have basically been above 90 in that passer rating when pressured. So it's been very different in how they've gone about it. But also it's trying to diagnose the defense and some of the confusing stuff they're doing. I think that's going to be quite the chess match for Jalen as well. All right, let's finish up. Hawks the Sword, KU players we think are set up to have a big game, and pick a prop. This is Locked On Jayhawks. This episode is brought to you by Factor Meals. Fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, which I know I am, taking care of a baby, right? You're doing stuff around the house, always trying to find time for chores around the house. You're going to have no problem getting your nutritious, great tasting meals. And I'll tell you, they really are delicious. Make today the day. You'll get a kickstart on that healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from, so you can really customize it from every week. You'll always have a new flavor to try. The Santa Fe green chili beef skillet, awesome. Creamy pesto pork chop, my favorite. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Use code LockedOnCollege50. You get 50% off your first box plus 20% off the next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active with Factor Meals. Finishing things up on today's KU UNLV preview, give us a little thumbs up, like button if you could. It certainly helps us out on our end of things. All right, Hawks to Soar. Let's start here. Offensively, I'm going to go Daniel Hishaw. So Devin Neal had 20 carries for 71 yards in the bowl game. Not a huge number in terms of yards per carry, 3.6. I think based on last week, they might overcorrect and run the football a bit more. But I don't necessarily know if UNLV's run defense, I think, is going to be better than Illinois' run defense. So I think it'll be interesting. But here's what I find interesting is that the defense they're going against, I don't know if this was the case. It was a limited sample size of carries. Hishaw in the bowl game had 5 carries for 27 yards. That's 5.4 yards per carry. I just wonder if there's something about with UNLV's defense, being maybe lighter in the box where they're playing kind of that 2-4-5, where you have one extra DB or 4-2-5, however you want to phrase it. Is there maybe more of the bludgeoning power running back opportunity for him than the guy who is more of the one cut and trying to find cutting lanes? And there's just not as many because there's a bunch of extra fast guys and DBs on the field. So I think both are going to, and Neal's still going to end up with more carries and probably end up with more yards. But I think in what they're averaging, I could see Hishaw averaging more than his season average than what Neal averages, I guess. And, so I could see him having a strong game. I think Neal will get a lot of carries. I think Hishaw will get a lot of carries. So I'm going to go with Daniel Hishaw here. And then J.B. Brown on the defensive side of the ball. He's coming off a good game against Illinois. Could be used in some pass rush and also as a linebacker. And what I find is interesting, Matthew Sluka, the quarterback for UNLV, he likes to run the football. I've kind of compared him to the Colin Klein style. He had 19 carries for 131 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground in a game against Boston College last year. That was a 3-point loss, and that was when he was at Holy Cross. This is a good player. Not as good of a passer as Jaden Maeva, but he's a much better runner. He's a power runner. And that means if you're a quarterback who runs it, a lot of tackle chances for the linebackers. I think that's Brown. I think that's Wheeler. I think a big game for J.B. Brown. All right, I'll pick a prop. Did not do well last week because the offense did not do well. Let's get on the positive here. Let's start with our scoop. This is our big bet one we feel good about. Daniel Highshaw, anytime touchdown. Going back to that, it's plus 126. There was actually a quote from Jeff Grimes earlier this week where he was really kind of talking up, or I think it was on the broadcast, Daniel Highshaw and what he brings to the table. I think with the combination of, hey, we should have ran the ball a little bit more last week. Hey, we have this power running back. I'm going Highshaw with the touchdown, plus 126 on FanDuel. They also have a boost for this game that you can use, 50% boost. So you can use that here. You can use that with a parlay, whatever you want to do. And then for the sprinkle, one with bigger odds that we're just going to, sprinkle on, maybe not as big of a bet, Quentin Skinner, 80-plus receiving yards. You can get that at plus 310. You can also, if you want to go down a little bit more, the alt line at 70 is over plus 200 on FanDuel, plus 310. Only had a couple catches against UNLV last year, but they were deep ball catches. And I think in a game where, Jalen Daniels obviously struggled throwing the ball deep against Illinois. Let's not forget, he ripped one deep against Lindenwood in that second quarter. Now playing back on that same field, maybe he's able to light it up a little bit. We haven't seen Skinner super involved early in the season. Maybe this is the game. And that's the beauty of Quentin Skinner. He's such a good deep ball threat. He can catch one deep ball for 60 yards, and then he catches two other passes, ends up with 3 catches for 84 yards and a touchdown or something. So I'm going to go with Skinner on the alt line and look for KU to, even if they do run the football more, like they're not just going to completely abandon throwing the football downfield. And I think to a certain standpoint, Jalen Daniels is going to say, yeah, listen, like we'll try to reel it in a little bit more, but I still got that deep ball in me and I'm going to take a shot to my guy Q. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. We'll be back to recap whatever happens in the game, certainly hoping for a positive result for KU after what happened last week. So make sure you subscribe to the show and check out our postcast after the game. This has been Locked On Jayhawks.